All right, let's get this party started. Hi, I'm Keith. Welcome to Game Dev Coaching Office Hours, and we're going to dive into some questions people have about people. Okay, here's the first question up tonight. How do I talk to a contractor who hasn't been delivering? Okay. So things are slightly different with a full-time employee versus a contractor. Not just speaking legally, but as far as what you're obligated to do as the person paying. Okay, so if you're an employer, you are obligated, like this is the social contract, as soon as somebody fails to completely meet expectations 100%, you don't just fire them outright. I mean, it depends on the sort of violation we might be talking about. But in general, if somebody turns in something an hour late, or they submit something and the code doesn't compile, whatever, somehow they fall short, you don't just fire them immediately. We go through different levels from informal to formal of coaching. We have some sort of mentoring, hopefully, to get people's skills up to, like, these are the sorts of things you do with a full-time employee. A contractor is different in that one of the things you are paying for with a non-full-time employee is they are a black box where you put money in and you get the results that you want. That's the whole idea behind the contractor. So you can absolutely still engage with them in a measure of coaching, some sort of training. Well, here's our pipeline. Here's the way we want things to work, whatever. Like, those are things you can do. And I'm not saying you should never provide that level of support for a contractor. But the social contract is different with a contractor. One of the things that comes with the fact that you are paying probably extra per hour, right, to have a contractor instead of a full-time employee. One of the things that comes with this arrangement is the reason I'm paying you is because you can do the thing. So if they aren't doing the thing, you have fewer obligations to coach them and entertain them through some sort of catch-up period. So what I would say is this. So if you have a contractor who hasn't been delivering, as usual, it depends. There's context here we don't have. How egregious is the failure? How long has it been going on? In general, I feel as though there's a shorter duration of time you're willing to put up with a failure to meet expectations because they're a contractor. I feel as though the right thing to do is still give them some sort of a heads up. Hey, we were expecting X and we got Y. Hey, this was due on Friday. You didn't turn it until Monday. But give them a chance to improve, to realize they've done something wrong. It absolutely depends on the severity, how badly they missed, how long they've been missing. All these things are factors. But in general, I would be probably quicker to talk to a contractor and say, so you know, this thing that you delivered on Monday was due on Friday. And one of the reasons that I went with your services is because when we first got to know one another, or when I first got the referral from somebody else who's worked with you, I had reason to believe that you would deliver quality that we needed on time. This was not on time, and that's not what I'm paying for. So you should be prepared to move on from a contractor more quickly than from a full-time employee. Obviously, there are other caveats here. What if I don't have the time or money to go searching for a replacement contractor? Well, then, yeah, you're going to talk to this person. You're still, regardless, you're still going to be professional. You're still going to be courteous, all these things. You're not going to be yelling and swearing at somebody because they turned it in on Monday instead of Friday. So I would start with being clear. Like at the day one, when we sign a contract with them, and I'm sure you have actual employment contracts with contractors, right? From day one, we have to be clear on expectations. At no point in time do we want somebody to think that they're delivering what you want when they actually aren't. So you got to be clear on expectations. And given the fact that it's a contractor agreement, you should be quicker to call out and call out more strenuously when they don't meet the expectations. And really, if I'm the contractor, I want to know right away, because so much of my livelihood depends on all of my clients being happy and giving me 5-star reviews and whatever. If you as my client are unhappy with the results, who knows how badly that's going to impact my reputation. You certainly aren't going to refer me to anybody else you know. And you might go so far as to badmouth me on Discord or in some sort of forum somewhere, or the next time you talk to somebody. And I can't afford that. So it's in my interest as the contractor to find out if I'm ever not delivering. And if you ever find yourself working with a contractor who doesn't care if they aren't getting the job done, yes, look for a replacement right away. Because holy crap, that you aren't paying for somebody to not care. So to wrap this up, be professional, be courteous, be prompt with letting them know that they have failed to meet expectations. And I'm not saying necessarily hold them to a higher standard than a full-time employee, but hold them to that standard more quickly. Because one of the things you're paying for with a contractor is that they should just be a black box of results. I put money in one end and I get the results I need out the other. And there shouldn't be coaching or questions or any of that. All right, let's see here. Let's look at the next question. What should happen when we onboard a new team member? Wow. Okay, so really broad. Is this a designer, an engineer, an audio person, QA, animator? Is this entry-level intern, junior, senior, principal? Is this a manager? Is this an individual contributor? All these sorts of things we don't know. Broadly, I would say for any new team member, pretty sure I've said this before. We'll back up a step. Why did we hire someone? We identified a business need as a company. We have to have somebody to clean mocap. We have to have somebody who can churn out low poly terrain. We have to, whatever it is, we said, here's a thing that we need. So we believe that hiring a person who can do this is going to meet our business need. So you identified a business need. Now what you should also have, this is before you write the job posting and put it online. You have the business need, what's the problem we're trying to solve, and then you have 2, 3, 4 bullet points indicating measures of success. Here's how you, the animator, you, the modeler, can know you are being successful at this job. If you don't have those things, don't post the job opening because you haven't thought it through enough. So you need to be able to describe the problem this person is solving by joining the team and measures of success so that they can know they're doing a good job. All right, now assuming we have those things, when we onboard somebody, and we all know that job descriptions online are, I'm not going to say largely meaningless, but they are very flexible in their representation of reality. And therefore, even though I passed the interview gauntlet and I got hired, I can't necessarily rely solely on what was in the job posting. So what we as the company should do, day 0. So this is before the person is on the clock their first day. We should have written down what the measures of success are for their job. So that as soon as they get started, they can know this is how I am being successful. This is how I prioritize my time and energy. All right, so that's information we should provide somebody as part of the onboarding experience. More nuts and bolts stuff. We need to have whatever credentials they need. If they need access to Perforce, if they need to know how to get on Slack, whatever. If there's hardware they need, if we need to mail them a laptop or whatever the deal is. So software, hardware, information, credentials and such. We will have to do things, like, at least here in the States, there's a lot of paperwork involved. Are we signing you up for healthcare, 401k, tax withholding, and just all these kinds of things. So we'll just kind of set aside all the administrative nonsense. And we'll get to the things that I think really matter. So treating this person like they are a full human being and welcome on the team. So we give them all the stuff they need to get up and running. We mentioned that, passwords, licenses, hardware, all that. And then we want to make sure they know who their boss is. So this is right up there with the measures of success for the role. Who's my boss? Who's the person in this organization whose job it is to remove obstacles between me and success? Right, so I need to know who my boss is. What the company should provide on day one as part of the onboarding is, hey, here's your boss, here's Biff. He's going to be your manager. Biff is going to send you some calendar invites coming up to be part of whatever team meetings you're supposed to be part of, but also it's going to set up recurring one-on-one meetings with you, because Biff is meeting with each one of his team members once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever, and that is something that we make a point of ensuring happens with every team member. Everyone gets one-on-ones. They are regular, they are frequent, and so that should happen day one. We get the calendar invites from Biff, the manager. What are the things that we can do to make somebody feel welcome? I mean, you can send them an email with all these links and your login credentials and whatever. That's not quite the same thing as making someone feel welcome. Something I used to do way back in the day at Raven, I initiated the new programmer launch, the NPL. So anytime a programmer joined the company, like even if it wasn't on my team, new programmer joins the company, send out an email to the all programmers everywhere email group and say, hey, we've got a new programmer lunch coming up. How about Tuesday? New programmer is Biff, and give them whatever details. Hey, Biff, where do you want to go for lunch? So that's a way that we recognize them as a human being. Oh, Biff eats meals occasionally. And try to make them feel welcome. Hey, somebody knows my name. Somebody made a point of inviting me to something. So these are steps that I would suggest taking that are right up there with, does the manager set up one-on-ones with them? These are things that should be part of the onboarding package. More of the kind of sort of administrative part. If there's an employee handbook, depending on, especially if you're part of a big corp, but depending on the organization, you may be required to not only read the employee handbook, but sign the last page that proves you read it. And then they store that away in an HR folder somewhere. So that could be a thing. But at the very least, if we have a handbook, make sure this person gets a copy on day one. Link them to the page in Notion, whatever. Something that may be part of the handbook or may be totally separate from it. Do we have a code of conduct? Do we have a set of bullet points that says, these are things we expect of everyone's behavior here? These are constraints we place on how you are allowed to act in relation to other human beings on the team. If we have that, we're going to link that. If they need any sort of quick links to, here's how you apply for paid time off, for vacation time, here's our sick day policy, whatever. Any of those sorts of things that just make it as frictionless as possible for them to just not worry about fundamental aspects of how I be part of this team. So those are things that I would want to see happen when we onboard somebody. And now preferably this is not, if we provide all this to the team member, great, but how we provide it is also important. If the team member feels like we're just kind of making this up and it's all ad hoc and, oh, hey, yeah, you need one-on-ones, right? So we should figure out who your boss is. Let me find out who your boss is real quick. Like that does not feel buttoned up. That feels like we are winging it. I have worked with a client that had, I think they set it up in Notion. They had this fantastic, just detail. This is all behind the scenes. Like they don't show all of this burdensome amount of administration to the new team member. But behind the scenes, they had this really detailed Notion page set up with day 1, we're going to do these things, and day 3, we've got these, and then the beginning of the second week, there's this, and then there's the 30-day check-in with this person, and it's all checklists. Just making sure that we're ticking all of the things. Did they get the software license? Yes. Did they have the login credentials? All of these things were just totally set up in advance, completely buttoned up. And I guarantee you that team members who join that organization know that there is a process to being onboarded. They can feel that is all nailed down. So I'm a big believer in checklists for stuff like this. It's for the incredibly important but simple stuff. You know, do they have login credentials? Yes, no. Tick the box. Like that's what checklists are for. Surgeons use them. Passenger jet pilots use them. Like people in critical roles use checklists to keep track of really important but simple things. So use those in your onboarding to make sure that we don't miss anything for somebody. And that sense of organization will carry through. They will know that you care about how people join the team. They will feel that organization. So all of those things I think are important for when we onboard a new team member. And if you've got a Slack channel, you know, you can set them up in advance and have a, if they've given you a headshot or something that they're okay with, even an avatar image of some sort, like set that up. A couple other things I've seen people do on Slack for their Slack profiles, give the proper pronunciation of the person's name. Here's what my name sounds like. So that when you introduce them or you call on them in the team stand-up or whatever, we aren't massacring the person's name if it's something that we're unfamiliar with. So I've seen that. I've seen provision for setting up pronouns, letting people know, here's what this person's title is or here's what their remit is. These are the things they're responsible for. So that you know why this person joined. Oh, look, it says Biff, and Biff is the engineering manager for the tools team. Oh, okay. So those are some things that you can do straight away that are going to make this person feel welcome. And everybody, it's going to make it more frictionless for everybody else to welcome this person if they have this kind of info set up in advance. So you add them to the channels. You send out the little welcome blurb, all of these kinds of little things to make people feel welcome. So that's a whole bunch of stuff from comparatively informal to comparatively formal. But what should happen when we onboard a team member? Well, all of that. Let's see here. All right. I don't want our studio to be that company that ghosts job applicants. But we've got hundreds of people applying, and I can't reply to all of them. What do I do? Excellent question. So here's my take. I have been the chief people officer pro tem for a small game company before. Now, part of my job was setting up all these kinds of things. What's our interview process like? How do we track our candidate pipeline? And I have done it in, like, this is, you have no budget, good luck. I have done it just in Google Docs, like I had a Google Sheet where we just pasted every applicant's name. We had links to their emails, and we had columns for each stage of the pipeline they're in. You had to move them and all this stuff. So it was not automated, but it was at least organized. So when we got the official extend an offer or pass on this candidate kind of decision, we would know to move this person to this column, and then I had email templates set up. It took me all of 30 seconds to send this person an email. Was I able to personalize them? No, but they at least got an email. So I have done that, and I can tell you that only works one person doing it via a spreadsheet. That only works if you're dealing with like dozens of candidates. Once you're dealing with scores of candidates or hundreds of them, this method does not work. So at this point, what you need is called an ATS, an applicant tracking system. And this is a category of software. What's an example of one that clients have used? Gusto. Yeah. No, not Gusto. Well, maybe they've used that. Breezy HR is another. I'm trying to think of like low cost. Not like Greenhouse or something. It's going to be one of the pricier ones. Greenhouse or Jazz HR or something. Or Lever. These are like the bigger tickets, like big companies use these. And I don't know how the price scales, to be honest. Because I assume that we're talking about smaller companies here, where this question is coming from. So we're talking about what's an applicant tracking system you can get on the cheap, basically. So this is $100 or $200 a month, right? So you're looking at something like a Breezy HR, let's say, and it is a very simple. The default pipeline is great. So the pipeline is what are the stages where we move somebody from once they've applied to the job. Have we done interview number 1, interview number 2? Have we made a decision as to whether we want to extend an offer, or have we rejected them as a candidate? All these kinds of things, right? So there's this pipeline. It's like a Trello board, right? Like you're literally just dragging and dropping people. So what will make your life immensely easier is getting an ATS, because when you set that up, it should give you the when somebody applies on your website, it should go, their application information should go straight into the ATS. You shouldn't have to copy or paste or drag and drop or anything. When they apply, their info should be in the ATS. So all you have to do in the morning is you come in, you log into the ATS, you look at who the new candidates are. And you can do a brief summary on them. Oh, they didn't even include a resume. Okay, they're rejected. This person would need a work visa, and we aren't set up to do that, so they're rejected. You make all these sorts of decisions. If they pass the initial filtering, then you drag them over into the phone screen category or whatever, where it should, and this is the beauty of it, you can set up the ATS with email templates that will automatically get sent when someone is moved into that new column in the pipeline. So when you move somebody from applied to phone screen, it should automatically send them an email template. Hi, first name or whatever. Thanks so much for applying. Your skills and expertise are interesting to us. We'd love to set up an initial phone screen to learn more about you and tell you more about the company. Here's a link to our Calendly. Right? Like that whole thing should be automated. All you had to do was drag them into a new column in the ATS. And by the way, as soon as they apply, they should get an automated email. Hey, thanks for applying. We do our best to get back to every applicant within 1 week. Please be patient if it's been more than a week, but this email is here to let you know that you're in our system. Right? So that they should automatically get that. So that the creation of email templates, the fact that they are automated based on where this person moves to in the pipeline, basically means that you have to try to ignore a candidate to ghost them. So if you've got 100 candidates in here, you should still be able to look them over, do some filtering, do some evaluating, and you can just drag them straight into the rejected column, and that automatically sends them a template email. So long as you reject them in the system, they should never be left in limbo. Once they apply, they get an email. Once they get moved into we would like an interview with you, they get into that column, they get an email. If you decide, we're going to pass on this person, you drag them into the rejected column. They get an email. If your team decides this person looks amazing, we should extend an offer to them, you drag them into the make an offer column, and they get an email. So, there's no reason anybody should ever get ghosted when you are using an ATS. So basically, that's the solution here. If you want to not ghost people, get an ATS. If you can't afford an ATS, okay, this is going to be a lot of work on your part. And I don't know how you're going to do this with hundreds of applicants. But put them in a Google Sheet. And you can drag them around there. And once you drag somebody into a column, then you know you have to send them an email. You can still have email templates where it's like copy and paste and stuff. And it takes longer than an automated ATS would. But you can at least make it organized. And if you're putting people in the correct columns, then you know when someone needs an email. And so the only thing that might result in them being ghosted is the fact that you dragged them into a column and then forgot to do the next step. Or you just have so many candidates that you just can't keep up. Even as organized as you can make your spreadsheet, the fact that it's not automated means that you, as one person, can't handle hundreds of applicants. So that is just going to happen. If you can't afford a couple $100 a month to get an ATS set up, and you're dealing with hundreds of applicants, then potentially something you could do that might whittle that down is, I'm not a fan of having a ton of questions before somebody even gets to an interview. If you've ever applied for a job and you've seen one of these places, I hate this, where they ask you like a dozen essay questions before you can even submit your application. Heck with that, man. Come on, do you know how emotionally draining it is to have to deal with that stuff when you're applying to dozens of jobs a week? Oh my gosh, don't be that company. Don't make people answer a ton of essay questions before they can even apply. But if you can set up, this depends on the system that you use. If you put it on something like Indeed, I don't know how many, like what kind of a questionnaire you can ask. I know you can ask some questions. I don't know how many. Point being, asking questions at the time they're applying. Have you ever had a professional job in the games industry? There are some people who are applying straight out of university, and if you can't support that junior of an employee, then this is a level of filtering you should be doing right away. You should be asking them, if you've never had a job in the games industry, this particular role, senior engineer, is not for you. So if you add some questions to the application process, maybe that cuts down on the number of applicants that you get. And the applicants you should be losing from the pipeline there are the ones that really shouldn't be applying anyway, because they're not going to pass muster. So you want to ask questions that are going to legitimately whittle down the list. Like, you don't want to ask dumb questions like, does your name begin with a consonant, and then kick them out. That's dumb. Don't do that. But ask legitimate questions. Maybe ask them, hey, would you need, are you authorized to work in the U.S.? If you're a U.S. company, right, and you can't afford getting someone a visa or whatever, you can't set that up for whatever reason, then you ask them, are you authorized to work in the U.S.? And if they aren't, then, hey, don't bother applying because there's no way we can support your application process. So some of these things could perhaps at least reduce the number of applicants that you're getting. And it should be applicants that really shouldn't be applying anyway because they don't have any hope of getting past the interview stage. So reduce the number of applicants, get an ATS. If you can't afford an ATS, put the stuff in a spreadsheet and manually move stuff over. If you can get somebody else to help, like when I was working with a small company, we had lead engineer, lead artist, lead designer, right? And they had to look at the spreadsheet too. And so if I moved somebody into the accept or reject column, then it was on them to send the emails. So that was a way to make sure that every candidate got emails without bogging down one person, making them responsible for all of the email responses. So if you can't get an ATS, then see if other team members can help. Look at your spreadsheet, which you have carefully organized and you keep up to date, and make them responsible for sending some of those emails as well. So these are steps I would suggest taking if you are getting hundreds of people applying for jobs and you are having trouble replying to all of them. And thank you for not wanting to be that company that ghosts job applicants. Like, here's the deal, man. If you just go out and apply to some jobs, see what happens. The last time I did that a few years ago, I think I applied to 80-some people operations jobs. And the response rate, like even getting a rejection, right? The response rate was something like 30%. So more than half of the time, I never got any response. And significantly, maybe you would get an email that said, thanks for applying, but you'd never get anything after that. So the bar is painted on the floor, and most companies cannot rise to it. So I'm thankful that somebody out there wants to not be that company that ghosts job applicants. And boy, if you just don't ghost them, you are already like in the top 25% of all companies in the industry, which is just stupid and painful. But here we are. All right, good questions. Good questions tonight. I think that's going to wrap up the office hours. If anybody's interested, by the way, in leadership skills for game devs, go to gamedevcoaching.com. We've got a link to the video series. I'm getting ever closer to the final release, putting out the last few videos in that series. So check that out. All right, thanks, everybody, and we'll catch you later.